When I was out shopping, I bumped into my fiancé with his mistress. They both wanted the same bracelet, and he ended up buying it for her for $300,000, saying to me casually, "You're more sensible, we're getting engaged soon anyway, you shouldn't mind." Later, when Vera pointed out a tie for him, saying it would be a gift from her, I immediately paid for it, telling him, "This tie is for someone else, you can order another one, it'll be here in a few days, you shouldn't mind." That night, when he saw the tie on his brother, he got so angry that his face turned purple. I suggested breaking off the engagement, and he smashed all the glassware in our future home, kicking the coffee table and grabbing my chin, saying, "Stella, you've gone too far." I laughed loudly and said, "I'm not messing around with him." In a luxury store, I ran into Peter with Vera, shopping. They were holding hands, looking like a couple. When he saw me, he immediately frowned and asked, "What are you doing here?" I reminded him that we were engaged. I was his legitimate fiancé, his girlfriend of 6 years, but there he was with his mistress, parading around, showing impatience when seeing me. I knew he thought I was following him again from his expression. I calmly looked away, picking out jewelry that suited me, saying, "I'm just enjoying shopping, you two do your thing." He sneered, clearly not believing me. I couldn't be bothered to explain, and my eyes fell on a traditional handcrafted bracelet with blue diamonds. It caught my eye. I asked the saleslady to show it to me. "Peter, I really like that bracelet too," said Vera, gently shaking Peter's hand and pointing at the bracelet I had my eye on, with a hint of coquetry. Peter was clearly pleased and handed the saleslady his card, saying, "No need to see it, wrap it up." He bought the $300,000 bracelet without hesitation and told me, "You're more sensible, we're getting engaged soon anyway, you shouldn't mind, everything in this store is limited edition, if you want more, you'll have to custom order." She glanced at me with a smirk, as if mocking me for always being the loser. I asked the saleslady to show me another bracelet. There were plenty of bracelets. Why be fixated on just one? She was stunned. In the past, I wasn't sensible. I used to be hysterical, lose control, cry and fight over something that was non-negotiable. The result was a man staring at me coldly, asking if I was done throwing a tantrum. Wasn't he already promising to marry me? Want to shackle him with 6 years of affection for a lifetime? There had been too many despicable incidents like this. I became more and more indifferent, and eventually, I didn't even have the strength to argue, becoming what he referred to as sensible. Now, whether he bought a bracelet for another woman or gave her a house, it didn't really concern me anymore. There's nothing sadder than a dead heart. I had long been numb from the stabs. When Vera pointed out a gray-black striped tie to Peter, saying it was a return gift, I picked up the tie and said to the saleslady, "Wrap it up." I smiled and said to him, "I'm giving this tie away today, get another one, it should arrive in a few days, you shouldn't mind." "Stella, you don't have to keep score over what just happened, otherwise I'll give you the bracelet." He laughed. "Now, it's just a tie." Later, when I was dressed and about to leave, Peter showed up. I looked at him in surprise. "Why are you here?" He reached out to me, "Give it to me." I was puzzled. "What do you mean?" "The tie is for me, isn't it a gift for me?" "But I really want to give the tie to someone else." "There's no problem, I should be leaving." He thought I was jealous because he bought a bracelet for Vera earlier. He really was overthinking it. Today was someone's birthday, and the tie really did suit him. "I am inviting you to Calvin's birthday party." "I'm also going to Calvin's birthday party, but I hadn't planned on going with you." "Why not bring your mistress along with you?" "It's not very appropriate to bring her to a public event, it's better if you bring me." "Given how often you've been going in and out with her, it might be a bit too late to say it's not very suitable." "All right, I'll bring her," he said gruffly, slammed the door and left. I really had no intention of digging up old grievances. It's just that he and Vera were never discreet, and they had attended quite a few events together. The most ridiculous time was when he brought her directly to his house, on the day of our engagement banquet. He held her hand and told his family, "I can marry Stella, but I won't give up Vera. Stella and I have no feelings for each other a long time ago." Holding her hand, it feels like holding hands with both sides. There's no excitement. He had never said or done anything wrong, never cared about my feelings. He embarrassed me in front of other guests. Peter's grandfather almost had a stroke out of anger, and Peter's mother grabbed a whip and started hitting him. I still loved him at that time, perhaps it was a reflex developed over the years. I instinctively rushed to protect him, blocked the whip, it hit my hand and left a scar. It hurt so much, the tears I held back that night poured down instantly. I still have a scar on my pinky finger. Tonight, when I said I didn't want to go with him, I really meant it. Otherwise, Calvin would be unhappy. He's clingy and hard to please, I just want to avoid trouble. Calvin was waiting downstairs for me. I took the gift and went down. He pulled me into the car. I handed him the gift. Do you like it? As long as it's from Stella, I like it. When he said that, he was so happy. He had just started working in the company, needed to wear a suit, so I thought of giving him a tie for everyday use. Let me try it on and see if it suits me. He handed me the tie, leaning in and bending his neck toward me. Unlike Peter's chilling demeanor, he had a youthful vibe, with a teardrop mole at the corner of his eye, a hint of allure. His peach blossom eyes were charming. Today he wore a gray shirt, with the collar slightly open. From this angle, you could see his clavicle clearly, and his flawless abs faintly visible. The temperature in the car rose, making me slightly uncomfortable. I looked away and fastened the tie around his neck. He fastened my neck, stared straight into my eyes. Is it good? I nodded, and he immediately kissed me passionately. The car in front slowed down. Peter's voice came from behind. I instinctively pushed Calvin away. He grabbed my hand, then let go after a while. Leaning close to my ear, he grinned mischievously. Stella, isn't it exciting to kiss your fiancé's brother in public? Do you think he will come over? I saw Peter getting out of the car in the rearview mirror, seemingly about to come towards us eventually. As he was about to reach us, Calvin quickly drove the car away, leaving Peter with a face full of dust, standing there with a cold expression. Why change your mind and not let him see it? I still want to give my sister the choice to tell him she got dumped. Isn't that satisfying? I just hope not to wait too long. I'm getting impatient. I want to hold your hand, to let everyone know about our feelings. Jokingly, I said, I thought you were afraid of getting beaten up by him. Can't be sure who's going to be the one to hit who. At the birthday banquet, Peter really brought Vera. Everyone's mocking eyes turned towards me. I calmly put down my glass and went to the bathroom. I heard people coming in and they quickly started gossiping. Stella can really endure. Her fiancé openly brought another woman to Calvin's banquet, and she didn't even know where to hide. This isn't the first time, it's nothing new. At their engagement banquet, she was there. Yet Stella still endured. Do you think they will get married? I bet they won't, after enduring for so long. If they were going to break up, they would have done it long ago. It's been 2 years since the engagement, still no wedding date set. It's probably not going to happen. I pushed open the door. They looked at my expression, a bit embarrassed. I smiled lightly, threw the necklace on my neck into the trash. I bet they won't. I'm going to call off the engagement, and I just happened to visit the bathroom. Everyone says I'm Peter's backup, but it was him who pursued me back then. This necklace, he made it himself and gave it to me when he confessed to me. He almost got his hand cut while making this necklace. Back then, under the locust tree on campus, he held up this necklace, said he had liked me for a long time, promised to love me forever, and asked if I would be his girlfriend. The look in his teenage eyes was unusually hot with love. His words were sincere. I received the necklace, looked at his injured hand, cried so hard, scolded him as a fool. What if he had really cut off his hand? He said it was worth it for me. That's why I agreed to be with him. He held me in his arms, spinning around, saying we would be together forever. With the locust flowers falling all around, the false vows were so beautiful. Now that he has forgotten the promises we made when we were together. If it has to end now, there's no need to keep it, let it go where it should. When Calvin appeared, he specifically wore the tie I bought for him. The moment Peter noticed the tie, his grip on the glass tightened. He tried to control himself, strode over to me. Who was the tie intended for? Limited edition items. They're always noticed right away. I personally tied that tie around Calvin's neck before he appeared. When he was about to change it, I stopped him. Keep it on. it suits you well, looks great. Calvin wrapped his arm around my waist, leaning against me with a smile, saying, Stella, it looks like they're really considering making me a regular employee. Peter placed one hand on my wrist and asked again, you gave the tie to Calvin. Is that right? I replied nonchalantly, yeah, so what? He questioned with a grim expression, why would you give such an intimate item to another man? I chuckled lightly and countered, what's the problem? What right do you have to interrogate me? You gave Vera a bracelet that cost more than this tie. Have you been so frugal with her gifts all these years? I never questioned it. Peter's grip tightened on the highball glass in his hand, and the glass shattered, piercing his palm with shards of glass. Drawing blood, Vera nervously grasped his hand, calling out Peter, attracting the attention of onlookers. Sensing all eyes on us, I made a declaration on the spot, Peter and I won't be getting married. The previous engagement doesn't count, and our future has nothing to do with each other. The room fell silent, shocked that I would say such words. After all, I once ended up in the hospital due to a variety of mixed drinks just to avoid parting ways with him. He saw my pallid face, sickly from the incident, and his first words were, must you make yourself so unrecognizable? Look at yourself now, I can't stand to see it. I covered my face, crying uncontrollably. The video was leaked and circulated within our social circle, with rumors spreading that I would haunt Peter for the rest of my life, refusing to break off the engagement. Looking back now, I realize I had lost my last bit of self-respect just to hold on to that ridiculous love. It wasn't worth it. Vera was the only one in the room visibly excited, her eyes immediately shifting to Peter. Peter's expression darkened even further, likely not wanting to be a spectacle in front of so many people, as he quickly grabbed me to leave the party. Vera, however, caught his other hand. Peter promptly shook her hand off, causing her to fall to the ground, clearly exerting considerable force. Vera had never been treated this way before and she cried on the floor, heartbroken. Impatiently, he told her, you should go home for today. I didn't resist. I didn't want to be a laughingstock in public, especially after I had said what had to be said. Peter drove me to a villa. 2 years ago, we bought our house here. He ushered me into the room, fully furnished with items we had selected together. I felt strangely calm, while Peter, the moment he entered, smashed a vase. We had waited 3 months for that vase to arrive because it was out of stock, but by then he had met Vera on the day we were supposed to pick up the vase. Vera called saying she had severe menstrual cramps. He was halfway to get the vase when he asked me to get off and get it myself. He would often abandon me for a call from Vera, leaving me to handle most of the interior decoration, which I had done alone by the time the house was done. He didn't bother finishing the decoration and simply stopped, returning home with Vera. Feeling that wasn't enough, he shattered a set of ceramic dinnerware until the room was filled with broken pieces, having broken almost all the glassware in the room. Only then did he start to calm down slightly, sitting on the couch with his head hanging. When did you start with him? Looking down at him, I replied calmly, does it really matter now? He stayed silent, lighting a cigarette, and demanded, I just want to know. About half a year. His eyes shot up to me, bloodshot, and I thought you loved me so much. Just like that I gave a bitter smile, realizing how shameless he had to be to say such things. I had suffered for over a year, losing all my dignity and self-respect, becoming a laughing stock. I truly no longer loved him, and what right did he have to accuse me? It was his own hands that pushed me toward him. I'll be with Calvin, all thanks to him. After the night of the alcohol and peptic ulcer incident, he came to visit me. Gradually, I used various means just to see him. Eventually, he wouldn't even show up if I wasn't all right. Once, I had a car accident, a minor rear-end collision where nobody was hurt. The other driver refused to let me go, so I called Peter while waiting for the police. Vera happened to be hospitalized for gastrointestinal issues, and he was taking care of her. I only mentioned the car accident and before I could say more, he responded with scorn. Insisting that I was playing games again, with Vera genuinely in need of his care due to illness, if I could call him, it proved that the accident was either fake or not serious at all. The call was abruptly ended, and with no one coming for me, the other driver became aggressive. Calvin happened to pass by in a car, intervened, fought the person, and ended up being taken to the police station. Luckily, it was resolved with money in the end, with no further consequences. I recognized the person. He knew Peter. They weren't close, but their families were old friends and considered each other brothers. He didn't recognize me. Maybe I had lost too much weight during that period, lost my vitality, and looked so different from the old Stella. He wanted to exchange contact information with me, saying he had stood up for me and almost ended up in jail, so I should treat him to a meal as a thank you. Later, he started asking me out more often. I began to fear the empty feeling of being alone in the prepared bridal room, so I agreed to go out with him each time. Every time we met, he would go to great lengths to please me. I realized he might have feelings for me. I had intended to meet him and make it clear that he should stop contacting me. But on that day, I received a photo from Vera. It was a picture of her with Peter in bed. She was leaning on his chest, looking all glamorous, and Peter looked very content, sleeping soundly. She messaged me saying, "Stella, he told me when you're in bed, you're like a dead fish, no fun at all. He finally found pleasure being a man with me. If only he had met me earlier." Due to our deep family connections, it's not easy to call off the wedding, but if it were up to him, he would have left you long ago. You're like a mangy dog clinging on to him. If you had any sense, you'd break off the engagement sooner. That time, I truly shed my last tear for him. As I stared at myself in the mirror, I realized my face was numb, no expression on it, with dry eyes, and my heart felt numb. I knew I had finally let go, truly let go. When Calvin asked me out again, I told him, "Don't you recognize who I am?" He looked a bit puzzled, and I told him my name. After a moment of thought, he finally remembered and laughed. "Peter sure has no taste, choosing that woman with a fake face over you, who's so stunning and charming. If you know who I am, then don't come looking for me anymore." I got up to leave, but he grabbed my arm and pinned me against the wall, saying, "Stella, the way he treated you, you don't need to be with him. Are you still going to marry him?" "No." "Then give me a chance." He pleaded with his eyes, even willing to be a tool for me to make him jealous. I didn't do that. I wasn't that naive, and there was no need for it. After pushing him away, he persistently kept following me. Until one night, I was robbed, and he saved me, getting stabbed in the hand in the process. When I asked him why he came, he said Christmas was approaching, and he made a lot of cookies at home and wanted to bring some for me to try. I agreed to his seemingly unreasonable request, taking care of him for half a month. During that time, as we spent more time together, I couldn't deny I was drawn to him, so I agreed to give it a try. And that try lasted for more than half a year. Peter stubbed out his cigarette, exuding an intense pressure as he spoke with a husky voice. "You can play with him, but..." Suddenly, he stood up, kicked the coffee table, grabbed my chin, and said angrily, "Stella, you've gone too far. How dare you publicly announce the cancellation of our engagement?" I laughed loudly. "I'm not just playing with him. I don't take relationships lightly. I believe every relationship deserves respect." From the moment I started with Calvin, I wanted to break off the engagement with Peter. Whenever I tried to bring up the topic of breaking off the engagement with Peter, he would make excuses to not come home, or when I asked to talk, he simply wouldn't reply. He probably thought I wanted to talk about our marriage, so he avoided coming home and refused to talk. I found it really hard to see him. Recently, we happened to meet again at the same event, and I decided to announce it there on the spot, knowing this news would spread quickly within our social circle. His fingertips trembled, and his voice became unstable. He said, "I can let it go this time. I can break up with Vera, but you need to break up with Calvin too. We'll pretend we were just fooling around, and our families can sit down and talk about it, confirming the cancellation of our engagement." I pushed his hand away, wiped my chin with a tissue, removing the dried bloodstains. Glancing at his injured hand, I said to him, "But what about it? I have feelings for him. I feel nothing for you anymore. When I see you, my heart doesn't skip a beat anymore, and I'm not comfortable with physical contact with you. Let's forget about the wedding. Both families can sit down for a meal, and we'll formally cancel the engagement." His eyes darkened, and he clenched his injured hands tightly together. The blood, which had nearly stopped, started dripping again, falling to the ground drop by drop. With red eyes, he said, "The engagement cannot be cancelled. It's not up to you to decide. After all, everyone at the birthday banquet today has heard it all, and the media will spread the news. Since we didn't get married, you have no right to demand that I must marry you. Even if we were married, I'd still ask for a divorce." Having said that, I walked out without looking back. As soon as I stepped out the door, I ran into Calvin, who was sweating profusely. He grabbed me tightly and looked around everywhere. "I'm fine," I reassured him. He held me close, saying, "I was called away by the elders just now, and when I didn't see you for a while, you were missing. I heard you told Peter about calling off the engagement, and he aggressively dragged you away. I was worried something happened to you." At that moment, Peter came out, grabbed Calvin, and punched him in the face. "How dare you meddle?" Calvin never shows weakness, he punches back without hesitation. "If you don't appreciate it yourself, when you hang out with other women and hurt someone like her, have you ever considered her feelings? You see how miserable she was during that period? Now that you're in a hurry, you deserve it." 2 men fought on the ground, and though I tried to pull them apart, I couldn't. In the end, we had to call the police. Only after they were taken to the police station did things settle down. They were given a good lesson and then let go. Vera came to pick up Peter, while I helped Calvin and intended to take a taxi. Peter reached out, grabbing my hand. "It's so late, where are you going with him?" "What's it to you?" "I'll go wherever I want." Toy coldly brushed his hand away. Back then, Vera would also meet him late, when they were still in the ambiguous stage. When I asked him where he was going, he would coldly reply that it had nothing to do with me, he would go wherever he wanted. I looked at Calvin's face with some pity. There are bruises on the corners of his mouth. Peter ran to me, his face looking hurt, holding out his still bleeding palm. He hit me too, my face took several punches, and my hand got scratched tonight. "You didn't even look." "Peter, your girlfriend is behind you, go find her for some comfort." Calvin put his arm around my shoulder, smiling smugly, even though it hurt at the corners of his mouth. He still said, "And my girlfriend, of course, cares about me." "Why would she care about you, an outsider?" Vera ran up to him, holding his hand. "Peter, I saw you get hurt just now, and I bought some medicine for you. I'll help you apply it." Fortunately, Vera held him back, so we could smoothly get a taxi. That night, fearing Peter might come bother me again, I went directly to Calvin's place. He took out the first aid kit and asked me to apply the medicine for him. I used iodine to disinfect for him, and he happily held my hand. "Stella, I can finally introduce you to my family. They were looking for me just now to introduce a potential match. Well, let's see, maybe there's someone more suitable than me." He immediately hugged me. "There's no one more suitable than you. I've set my heart on you, you can't reject me." "Alright, let's apply the medicine properly. I'm in pain too, can you help me apply it?" Saying this, he lifted his clothes, revealing his bruised 8-pack abs. As I helped him apply the medicine, his breathing became heavy. He held my hand, fell on me, and kissed me forcefully. In the past, he always hesitated before kissing me, always asking for permission, but this time it was direct. That night, it can only be said that young people really have strong stamina. The news of the engagement being called off was known to both families. My parents didn't say much. They had been unhappy with Peter's behavior for the past 2 years and had been enduring it, thinking I still loved Peter. Peter's parents, on the other hand, did not have the face to stop it, only hoping that his disobedient son would not affect the relationship between the two families. It was the previous Peter, who always wanted to cancel the engagement with me, who would often appear in front of me. He was waiting outside my apartment with a large bouquet of gardenias. I didn't even look at him before walking inside. He grabbed me. "I've thought about it for days, all that's in my mind is our past. I don't want to call off the engagement." "Stella," I shook off his hand, "don't waste your breath. It's too late now. I feel completely indifferent to you." Seeing the ambiguous marks on my collarbone, he looked as if he was about to explode. "Last night, did you go to his place?" I found it amusing and retorted in a mocking tone, "Yes, any problem with that? Don't tell me you and Vera had a platonic relationship during the 2 years you were together? I know it's impossible, after all, I've even received bedroom photos. In the past, instead of saying he was going to Vera's place, it should have been he had visited mine several times. There were countless ambiguous marks, as well as the strong scent of rose perfume, which always set my nerves on edge. If only I had known he would be waiting at the door of the apartment today, I wouldn't have come back. His aggressive demeanor immediately softened, his eyes looking humbly. Let's not dwell on the past. I didn't see anything, I don't know anything, can we start over? Or maybe you should get your brain or ears checked. Is it your ears that don't hear or your brain that doesn't understand my words? We've had nothing going on since last night, and naturally, there won't be anything in the future. It's impossible between you and me. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, am I a fool or blind? Seeing him stunned by my response, I quickly unlocked the door and shut him out. As soon as I entered the apartment, Vera's call came through again, but I didn't answer. She started frantically texting. Bitch, did you say something to Peter? He wants to break up with me. He loves me so much, how could he want to break up with me? It's because he pressured him from home, right? He said that without the family pressure, he would have broken off the engagement with you long ago, and married me. What's the use of clinging to him? He doesn't love you anymore, spare him, I beg you, I can't live without him, I'll die without him. Peter actually did break up with her. It was a result I had tried to bring about many times before, but I never succeeded. Finally, they felt the pain of someone they cared about being with someone else. Unfortunately, it was all too late. If it had been a year ago when I saw this message, would have reconciled with him without hesitation and married him again. But now, all I feel is that they are together causing each other pain. Seeing her talking so deliriously, I felt a kind of sadness for her. Next, she began to babble about what Peter had done to make her happy. If she knew what Peter was like when he loved me, she would realize how ridiculous her words were, but it was all just some hypocritical sweet talk. I have known Peter since we were young. He started pursuing me in high school. He made jewelry for me by hand, cooked nutritious meals for me when I had a poor appetite, and brought them to me every day. He even chose the same university as me and worked hard to study there. Whatever I wanted to eat, even if I mentioned it in the middle of the night, he would bring it to me. When I wanted to start a studio and couldn't find the designer I wanted, he went to work as an assistant for a month for the designer. Having never suffered, he endured all kinds of difficulties with a good temper, just to get that designer to agree to work in my studio. The designer, upon seeing me for the first time, told me, "You found a man who really, really loves you." What's ridiculous is that this man who loved me intensely, after proposing to me in our 4th year together, had a change of heart I endured for so long because he had genuinely loved me before, and we had a sweet past. I didn't want to believe that he would choose another woman over me. Reality brutally slapped me in the face. After Vera appeared, he kept putting my heart through hell, making me feel like life wasn't worth living. Vera's messages kept coming. She said he didn't show up on our anniversary, because he went to an exhibition with her. They kissed under romantic lights that day. For the first time, he didn't celebrate my birthday because Vera fell while changing a light bulb at home. He immediately rushed to take care of her and even helped her change the bulb. He did everything that needed to be done that time, just one step was missing. He even bought a house near our future marital home, so they could be together whenever, after we got married. Turns out, except sleeping with her, he didn't really do much himself. Most of it was done by his staff. Love, for Peter, has a time limit. For me, it's 4 years. For her, maybe only 2 years. What he loves is the excitement dopamine gives him. Once that's gone, he wants a new target. I only sent her one message, I want to cancel the engagement, he doesn't. She finally quieted down. Peter didn't leave even at night, it started raining outside. I got up to close the window and saw him still standing downstairs, looking up in the direction where I lived. It rained all night, and the next day when I left, he was still there. Not sure if he was trying to soften me, he stubbornly stayed outside the car, drenched in rain all night. He ended up slumping in front of the car drowsily. When I passed by, he was mumbling my name. Kindly, I called Vera asking her to pick him up. Afraid he might come again, I decided to move into the villa Calvin bought. It was peaceful for a few days, then Vera's calls started again. I hung up, but she kept calling. I blocked her. She called me from someone else's phone. Come to the hospital and see Peter. I'm busy, I have to go to work. He refuses to take medicine or get 4 drips, his high fever won't go down. If you don't come, something might happen to him. She started crying as she spoke. She said, Stella, I give up, he loves you more. Can you please come and check on him? After all, you grew up together. I went to the hospital and saw him. In just 2 days, he had lost weight, his face was flushed from the fever, and he looked spiritless. The moment he saw me, his face lit up with surprise. Stella, you finally came to see me. I glanced at him from head to toe. Do you have to look like a ghost to get attention? Look at yourself now, I'm annoyed just by looking at you. He looked embarrassed for a moment, then covered his face, hoarsely saying, it's karma. How can you talk to Peter like that? Vera yelled at me unhappily. Shut up, get out, Vera. Stella can say whatever she wants, as long as she's willing to see me, Peter said earnestly. Vera unwillingly said she would go find a doctor to give him an injection. He anxiously grabbed my hand, looking pale. This time, I really cut ties with Vera. You have to believe me, I won't have anyone else in the future. I don't know why she brought me to the hospital. I called her to come pick you up. How can I trust you? I said. Once a cheater, always a cheater. You've tainted yourself. I can't believe you. His eyes reddened from discomfort, with a trace of grievance. I'm a man, just made some mistakes unintentionally, but I'm willing to change. Why won't you give me a chance? You know how much I love you, I did so much for you in the past, we have so many sweet memories. He's a spoiled man who doesn't see his faults. You've been selfish from the past till now, always thinking about yourself. When you loved me, you pursued me aggressively. Now that you don't, you want to discard me like a rag immediately. Now, when something you don't want is pushing you away, you're trying to hold on to me. You really disgust me. If you were really happy with Vera, maybe I wouldn't look down on you so much. If I continue to endure everything like before, he won't even notice me. Maybe he would still marry me, make me his wife in name only. Keep carousing outside, get tired of Vera, then move on to the next one. I would be left alone in an empty house, gradually corroded by discomfort, betrayal, and madness, until I choose to die to find relief. I truly regret it. Why don't you believe me? Do you want me to pour out my heart to make you believe me? He tremblingly got up from the sickbed and walked to the window. If I jump from here, then you would believe my sincerity. I massaged my temples, feeling exasperated. Maybe the moment he said I love you was sincere. But being with him again, I believe we would repeat the same mistakes, so I remained silent. The doctor came and had the nurse pull him back to bed. Fortunately, he hadn't eaten much with the fever, so he was easily subdued. He was tied to the bed, tears in his eyes, looking at me. You know you love me so much, now watch me die, and you won't even say let's start over. You focus on getting better. In the future, no matter what, I probably won't come back. Can you give me 3 more days? Can we walk together in the places we used to go? No need, I find every second with you too much. If there's a next time, don't bother telling me. After all, people who truly want to die do it quietly. You're just causing a scene. This is what he said to me when I cut my wrists for him. That night, I called him and said if he didn't come back, he would regret it forever. It was the housekeeper who found the blood on the floor and called the ambulance. The first thing he said when he saw me in the hospital was this: my purpose in coming to the hospital was for revenge, tit for tat, that's all. Calvin proposed to me. The grandeur compared to Peter back then was beyond compare. He had a drone deliver the ring to me, showered me with gardenias. He got down on one knee, holding the ring, and said, Stella, marry me. Before, he was a bit of a rascal, talking with a touch of insincerity. This time, he was very serious, sincere, even cautious. I reached out and lifted the ring to his face. He put on the ring, kissed me joyfully, touching his nose against mine. Finally, I can make it official. You have no idea how long I've envied others. The news of my upcoming marriage with Calvin was quickly reported by the media. Peter came again, seeing me holding hands with Calvin, looking pained. I was afraid the two of them would fight. You go up first and wait for me. Calvin didn't want to leave me alone with him, choosing to respect me. I'll be right here. Call me if you need me. You haven't even been together for a year, and you're getting married. Is that reliable? With me, we talked for 6 years altogether, known each other for 20 years. Is that reliable? He was speechless at my question. He's also a man. Do you trust him? I do. If we're together, we should trust each other, otherwise why be together? All those years with Peter, I relied on believing he still loved me to carry on. What if he betrays you too? Then, it's goodbye. The next one might be a better man. That's what I learned from this love game with Peter. No one has to be indispensable. I managed to move on after 6 years. Next time, I can do it too. Don't give up on love's existence because of one hurtful experience. It's not worth it for scum like that. But also, don't harm yourself for anyone in love. It's not worth it. The important thing is someone who truly loves you. The rest is just a joke to them. He forced a bitter smile. If I hadn't met Vera, then the one walking down the aisle with you would have been me. No, it would never be. I firmly cut him off. It wouldn't have been her. There would have been another woman. You have a restless heart. I won't bother you anymore. Vera is pregnant. I'm going to marry her. That's really great. I genuinely smiled. Peter handed me a necklace with a ruby. It must be worth a fortune, and said it was a wedding gift for me, then turned and walked away in silence. Calvin quickly walked over and asked me what he had said. I raised an eyebrow, laughed, and said, he said you're also a man, also unreliable. If you ever cheat in the future, I'll be the one in trouble. Slander. He thinks everyone is like him, can't control their desires. There's a difference between humans and dogs. I'm not a teddy. He was afraid that I wouldn't believe him, so he hugged me and said, Stella, don't listen to his lies. Before we got married, we made an agreement that if I ever cheat on you, all my money will be yours. I will be broke. If that day comes, don't feel sorry for me. I deserve it. How could I not love someone as lovely as you, Stella? I swear I will never even think about betraying you. His teasing words healed me. Peter and Vera still didn't get married. On their wedding day, Vera had a miscarriage. It seemed like there was a dispute with Peter and she was pushed down, blood everywhere, and the baby didn't make it. Originally, Peter's family only allowed her to marry because of the child. Now that the child was gone, the wedding was immediately cancelled. Since then, Vera has been acting erratically, taken care of in Peter's villa. One night, she went crazy, waited until Peter was asleep, then went into his room and cut off his manhood with scissors. She muttered, now you can't go find another woman. You'll be mine forever. If she had been taken to the hospital immediately, maybe there was a chance. Instead, she rushed into the sewers. She couldn't be found, and the sewage system was severely contaminated. After that, Peter became a wreck. His parents planned to have another child through in vitro fertilization. After all, they were wealthy. As for Vera, before, Peter's family felt guilty and didn't send her to a mental hospital. After this incident, they dared not keep her around, and she was immediately sent to a psychiatric hospital. Her condition was severe. She needed constant supervision. I heard all of this from my friends at Calvin's wedding banquet. They said to me, it's a good thing you didn't marry Stella back then. You might have gone crazy too. I nodded, understanding. In fact, back then, I was probably not far from insanity. Fortunately, I walked away. Now, I have found new happiness.